How's everybody doing? Mamma mia, mamma mia, mamma mia, Figaro. All right. How's everybody doing this evening? I got in here a little early, and usually when I get in, uh, there's already a few people, just hanging out and stuff in the chat room. But not so this evening, but that's okay. We actually have more thumbs up for the video than we do viewers right now. So that's always an interesting phenomenon. But I hope everybody is doing well. I've had a busy day. A lot going on right up to the very moment before I turned this camera on, went in here to the YouTube studio to start this show. And of course, I'll tell you a little bit about that before we're done. And I'll, of course, also recap that when I do the Unfound update after I'm done with this live show tonight to give everybody an idea what went on today. I hope everybody's doing well. It was a somewhat nice day here in Clearwater Beach, Florida. And I didn't leave my place. I did not go downstairs. I was up here. In fact, I don't even think I went outside today. I did not even go out the door to throw any trash away or anything like that. That's what it is when you get busy. And Wednesdays, as I've said many times, Wednesdays are usually the busiest day of the week for me. And especially so now that I'm doing the audio and video version of these episodes. And it's really only, and it was, it's a little tough this week. And of course, I'll be talking about this Friday's episode before we're done tonight. That the interview this week was 3 hours long. So I had to watch it, and I make notes on where the edits are supposed to be, if there's any mistakes or anything. But it does add time to the overall work I have to put into an episode. I don't mind. But when you get to an interview that's 3 hours long, and if you'll remember, well, Ed, you just did that 3 hour long interview with Rich McHale from Mark Heimbaugh. I was only doing audio at the time. This week, this Friday's episode will only be the third one that I've done on Zoom. So just that little change from last month to this month, or that was technically February to now, can make a huge difference in kind of my workflow. So today, of course, I had to put this whole entire outline together for this show. And I got, of course, a fantastic show lined up for you. And then I had to watch/listen to the entire Zoom interview, 3 hours. And then I'm putting together that video episode. And then I have to put together the audio episode. And I'm still not done. But the good news is that I usually don't go to bed 1 a.m. anyway. So after this live show is done, I will do the Unfound update today for all you members, and I'll get into that in a moment. And then I will also be completing the video and audio versions for Friday's episode tonight after the live show. I'm the hardest, as somebody once said way back in the infancy of Unfound, that Ed is the hardest working man in true crime. No, that's true, but it's a nice title to have. And of course that, I think that comes from James Brown, who was once labeled the hardest working man in rock and roll or music or something like that. That was a term originally given to James Brown to play on that. So that's what's going on with me. And Then I talked to my dad twice today, actually technically 3 or 4 times. We're having some phone issues that we were talking, then we'd get cut off, and then he'd call me back, and then we'd get cut off, and then I'd have to call him back, and we talked for a while, and then I called him at about 8:45 tonight, just to see how his day is ending up. And he is sitting there with his next door neighbor, Dottie, and they were watching TV. So that's good. Moana, good to see you. And then there's the moderator, Cherie, Charlie Bravo. Good to see you, Cherie. Thank you for moderating tonight. Suzanne, Barbara, Texarkana, Texas, or Texarkana, Arkansas, Barbara. And the only reason I know that is, of course, Barbara, you know, we covered a disappearance from that area, Eric Alvarado. Jasmine, what's up? The Real coming to us from Australia. I'm here only for the first half. Unfortunately, I have a Zoom meeting to get into in an hour. Well, that's all right, Real. Thank you for making some time anyway. Good to see you coming to us from the land down under. Kathy, good to see you. Boston. Everything, another Australian. Love these Australians coming in. It's so cool. Boston says there was an incident in Clearwater recently that made me think of you, Ed. Say, Stave. What incident was that, Boston? Maybe you want to tell me a little bit more about that. Probably I do know about it, but it just doesn't come to mind right now. Sharon, you know, I've been to Laughlin, Nevada many times. I used to go to Bullhead City. There was a First American title office in Bullhead City. So I would come down, I'd go through Searchlight, go down, what is that, the 93, and then make the left and go up there and then go down that long hill down into Laughlin. And then I take the bridge over into Arizona, make a right, go down to Bullhead City. So now, Sharon, you know that I said all that. You know that I've been there, if I can describe it that well. I made that trip many, many times back and forth, Sharon. But I know Laughlin, Nevada, Bullhead City. Of course, going over to Golden. Of course, we covered a disappearance from there just recently. Jordan Carvalho, Kingman, Arizona. I know all that area. But it's been a while. It's been like 13 years or something since I drove down that way. But I've gone up and down that hill outside of Laughlin, Nevada, going there and coming back many, many times. Hello, Roxanne. Roxanne. I remember that song from the 1980s. Good to see you. Maybe, Roxanne, you're new. Don't recognize your name from previous live shows. If I missed it, I'd apologize. Boston giving me the fist, which became very popular in these days of COVID. Instead of shaking people's hands, you're giving them the fist. I noticed that in disc golf, especially. In a minute, in showbiz, I don't know where that came from. In a minute, Roxanne says, purse from my friend Lisa, whose father's been missing from 1990, Wayne Connor in North Carolina. Well, Roxanne would love to help Lisa out. If you want to send me any information, Unfound Podcast at gmail.com. I'd be glad to do what I can. Charlene, it's 2:03 a.m. here in Ireland. That'll be about the time I'm going to bed tonight, Charlene, but it'll be Eastern in the United States. Thank you, Charlene. I just want to say that each and every podcast I've used, absolutely brilliant. Well, I'll try to keep that up. Those are high standards there, Charlene, but I can tell you this Friday's will certainly meet that standard. Hello, Katie. Show business. I'm not in, I know what show business is, and this is certainly, Unfound is certainly not show business. Hello, Karen. Barbara, there's Barbara. Texarkana, Arkansas, thank you. Charlotte, Boston. Okay, everybody's angling feet. There's a kangaroo only 8 feet away from me right now. Wow, Lareal, that's cool. Oh, the parking garage collapse. I must have missed that, Boston. I don't know. I guess you knew more about it than I do, Boston. Barbara says, do you know about Texarkana's most famous unsolved case, the Phantom Killer of the 1940s? Not familiar with it. Not familiar. Fist right back at you, Boston. Thank you. I appreciate it. Roxanne, I was the one that told you that you look like a young Dave Ellison. Oh, yes. I'll take that as a major compliment. Now I remember what I said, too. I remember what I said. I said, yeah, the old Dave Ellison, not the problems that he's had within these last couple of years. But thank you. Sharon says, I figured Laughlin would be very familiar. Yes. Thank you, Roxanne. Yeah, you get me some information. TD, were you just rapping the real Roxanne? Roxanne, Roxanne, I want to be your man. Yeah, I know that song. I'm 51 years old. That was popular when I was about 14. Oh, yeah, I know that song. Oh, yeah, for sure. Even though, don't let the long hair fool you. Katie, James Brown reference, hardest working man in show business. Thank you, Katie. There you go. Katie found it. Thank you. Boston says it killed a 23-year-old in Plymouth Plaza. You know, Boston, I just don't know about that. I have to look into it. Edmonton, we got Ireland, we got Australia, we got Edmonton. Never been there. Love you, Ed. Love your podcast. Robin, you're very kind. So nice of you to say. Thank you. It has to be probably still cold up there in Edmonton, but maybe it's getting a little warmer now. But I've never been there. I've only been to Ontario. Of course, the province of Ontario, Edmonton is of course a city. And I think we covered a disappearance from there. Wasn't that not Lucas Degerness, Robin? I think so. Roxanne, remember? Well, yeah. Okay. Everything. The police. Well, there's that. Yes, everything. There is also Roxanne. You don't have to turn. Yeah. That's certainly the other Roxanne song, everything. But for some reason, I just went to the rap song first. But certainly I know. The thing is, I love the police, but Roxanne is not one of my favorite police songs. Probably too overplayed. Probably just got too much of it. I'm more of a I can't stand losing. I can't stand losing. Or every little thing she does is magic. Roxanne is not one of my favorite police songs. Hello, Christy. What's up with you, Boston? You are very generous. What Boston has done there she has hit the super chat button, little gray box with the $sign in the middle. And if you'd like to monetarily contribute to the program, if your YouTube account is attached to a PayPal or Venmo or something like that, then you can also monetarily contribute. You can only do that, though, when you're watching live. For everybody that's catching this in the rerun, you can't do that. But I'm going to be talking about that other stuff in a little bit. But Boston, thank you very much. DLV, good evening, Ed. Been watching many of your episodes from years past. I've seen your hair evolve. Evolve is an interesting word, DLV. That's one way to put it. As somebody, I'll just be honest, somebody very recently said, well, I liked your hair better when it was short. And my response is, well, say it a little louder, because these ones reeled down at the end were still around when my hair was short. It's just a thing, DLV. But yes, my hair has evolved. You're right. Robin, hello. I feel honored. That's awesome. Roxanne, it drove me insane. Roxanne Long is beautiful. Thank you, Roxanne. You're very kind. All right, we're 14 minutes in, and I'm going to be mentioning this for the first time. If you are watching this, when you are watching this, please give this video a thumbs up. I'm doing a great job. I've been seeing those thumbs up, those likes of this video, because I check them in a few days after the live show plays. We've been doing a great job in that area. So don't let me down this week. Give this video a thumbs up. And if you're watching, but you're not yet a subscriber, maybe that might be a very unique person, but you never know. You can hit the subscribe button right there. I make it as easy can be. There's a subscribe button right there. Just put your mouse on it. You'll see the little subscribe thing pop out. Just hit that, and you'll be subscribed to this channel, which will help us. maybe help you too if you hit the little bell button beside the subscribe channel down below. And then when we upload videos or when the live show starts, like it did tonight, you will get a message, maybe through email, maybe that, or maybe if you have the YouTube app on your phone, that, hey, Ed is starting the show. Ed has uploaded a video. You should check it out. So subscribe and hit the little bell button, the notification button, if you could. Boston says, I highly suggest becoming a member. Ed does commentary post, the interviews. It's worth every penny. Well, Boston, thank you for posting that because I'm going to talk about it right now. I realize many of you watch on some sort of Apple device, iPad, iPhone. So for maybe some of you, you're not going to know what I'm talking about because you're not going to see it below for some reason. And I'm still working with YouTube and Patreon on that. But there is a button down here that says join. If you're wondering, all these people, if you're looking at the chat tonight and you see Boston, you see Kathy, you see Charlotte, the real, who else is in here? Maybe that's everybody right now, but if you see there, and Cherie as well, but she's in blue because she's the moderator. She's one of my assistants. But if you're wondering, well, why are they in green? Why do they have these special little symbols? They are members of this channel, and they get a lot of special, cool stuff. And there's Deborah. There's Deborah right there. I think she might be our newest member for this channel, but what you get, you can just find that out. Just hit the join button. By hitting the join button does not mean you automatically join. You can simply hit the join button to see what you get for being a member of this channel for only 10 cents a day. It's pretty cheap. You get a lot of good stuff. You will get the video version of the episodes on Fridays early, a day early. In fact, so for anybody who's in green over here in the chat, they actually get Friday's episode tomorrow, and it's in video. Also, they get the Unfound Now episodes. I've already published an Unfound Now for all of them. All of you will be getting it. Who aren't members yet will be getting it within the next couple days. They also get a sneak peek at the Patreon blog in audio that I write at Patreon. They also get a daily update. You know, maybe about 10 minutes ago, I told you that I'm going to have to do the Unfound update when this is all over. For about a month now, going back to when I was still in Pennsylvania, so easily over a month. I do an update episode every day for members. And I just tell them what I'm doing, what is going on with Unfound that day. Because I love to let everybody know what's going on behind the scenes. So if that sounds like, man, that sounds like a pretty good deal for only $3 a month, then just go down to the join button and check it out. No pressure. But I think you're going to like it. Everybody who signed up is still a member. So there must be something good about it. So please check that out. Once again, though, for you iPhone people, iPad people that are watching on those devices right now, you may be looking down there. I don't see a join button. There's something going on between Apple and YouTube and the app and all that stuff that is totally out of my control. So if you have one of those devices, you're probably going to have to go to a regular laptop computer that is not a Mac product to sign up. Possibly. So check that out. And Boston's saying, no pressure, Ed, but when there's another level, please let me know. I'll upgrade for sure, Boston. You're very kind. No plans right at this time, but if, being that this was Cherie's idea in the first place, and, I ran some ideas back here by her, she gave me some ideas. If Cherie, you were to give me some more ideas about what else you think we could be doing, of course, I'm totally open to it. Everything says, as if they use a browser, they will be able to see the join button for Apple people. Thank you. So you may not be able to see it through the app that you can get for YouTube, but if you actually, like in your browser, like your Safari browser, in your on your iPad or iPhone, you can just go up into the browser and type in youtube.com and maybe it'll work that way. Thank you, everything, for pointing that out. Deeply appreciate it. All right, so I got some of the business stuff out of the way. Once again, give this video a thumbs up as we continue tonight, because we're going to be here, but for another hour and a half at least. Just get it out of the way so you don't forget later. So what's going on with me? Did not get to play any doubles disc golf yesterday because I had a conversation. I had a phone call for a disappearance that I'm sure we will be covering within the next month. Not going to be in April because April pretty much is already planned for the rest of the month. And I'll be talking about that before we're done tonight. So probably in May, this disappearance will become an episode, but had an initial conversation yesterday. This is a disappearance that will take us eventually back to 1984. We were just there, of course, last week for Harry Milligan's. We're going to be going back there probably sometime in May, but this will be a disappearance of a woman, not a man. So because of that, unfound work always is number one in front of everything. And so if that happens, then I can't go play any disc golf. That's the way it is. And in fact, this weekend, I'm going to be doing an interview at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Well, I'm signed up for a tournament. Luckily, it's, you can just show up at any time. So I'm going to have to show up in the morning, get the round in then, come home, take a shower, get my hair did. Because of course we do video now. So when I do these videos, it's another step in the whole process that, I have to look decent. So I have to wash my hair, I have to shave and all of that, which when we were just doing audio, I didn't have to do. So this is what I mean. Everything is worked around any unfound work that I have to do. That's the way it is. It's a job. You have your jobs out there, that very, very, very little gets in the way of the work that you have to do, whether you run your own business or you are an employee. That's the way it is here. So I was going to go play doubles yesterday. Couldn't do it, but had a fantastic conversation with cousin of this missing woman. So I'm very excited about it. In fact, I had 2 conversations regarding new disappearances yesterday. So that is just like a banner day. That gets me all excited. And I think that's one of the things that 5.5 years in, I still get as excited as ever talking to new people, finding out about new disappearances, talking to these people, trying to figure out things for them, looking into anything that I need to look into after 240 some disappearances and all these interviews, way more interviews that I've done, almost 300. I still get fantastically excited about talking to people, meeting people, although I don't meet them in person, but over the phone and developing a rapport with them. It's still probably easily one of the best parts of doing this. To send some emails out or somebody else, or, Cherie, Emily, whoever else, or Marky Davis, who's been helping a lot lately. They say they contacted somebody. Why don't you talk to somebody? I get so excited. I just get all pumped up. So that always takes precedent over, everything else in my life. So, but I do have to play this weekend. It is a rated round. Luckily, it's right over at my local course. So I'm hoping that I do decently well. I haven't competed since January, but the last time I competed, I actually won my division. So we'll see how I do. But I will have to get there early. Probably the round will take, depends, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So as long as I'm home by like 3 o'clock to take a shower and all that, to let my hair dry, it usually takes a couple hours for my hair to dry. I'll be fine. So if I can start by noon, I should be done by 3, get back here by 3:15, and get ready for this interview that I'll be doing at 5 o'clock. And the interview that I'll be doing on Saturday, I don't know how much we're going to get into it in the interview because she and I have not even talked about it yet. But she's a little bit famous. I don't know if I want to go into it. Like I said, we haven't done the interview yet. My assistants know who she is, and Cherie and any other assistant don't give it away because I don't know if we're going to get into that. And surely she would not want that to distract from the interview she's going to do about the disappearance of her brother. But she's a little bit famous. That's all I'm going to say right now. So disc golf this weekend, first tournament since January. So that's going on. Started working out again, not just kind of easing back into it. It's been a while. Told myself once I got back from Pennsylvania and kind of got back on my feet here, get everything in line again. So at night, every other night, so I did it last night, won't be tonight, but it will be tomorrow night. I have some dumbbells, even though there's a gym in my building that is pretty nice. I'm not ready to go back to the official gym yet. Just kind of loosening myself up, doing some push-ups, some crunches. I got some dumbbells, 20-pound dumbbells, just doing some biceps and doing some squats with those dumbbells, which of course is not a lot of weight. Just working my way slowly back into it. I'm not saying that I've let myself go. I still think that I look pretty good. Been watching what I eat, but it's about time that I start hitting the weights and things a little bit again, and it's been a while. So out at night, being that now it's beautiful out here at night, and I got this whole open space right by the elevator, and some of you have seen the pictures that I've taken from that area. It's the perfect place to just do a small workout. I have a great view looking east, the jets, the helicopters flying overhead, the cars and everything. It's a beautiful view of Clearwater. So it's a great place to work out. I've started doing that again. So what some of you are saying here. Deborah says, I don't have the join button last week after I hit the icon and joined on the right. Okay, thank you, Deborah. Charlotte, I have a suggestion. Maybe you could put a picture of the missing person on the beginning of the podcast. I like that idea, Charlotte. Thank you. Everything says, are you still seeing your sports therapist yet? I have not seen her since I've gotten back, but I do have plans to do that. Just have not scheduled anything. Everything, I've been pretty busy since I came back. I probably will go see her, but I'll just be honest. I don't know how much we'll be talking, sports. I haven't been playing much. We'll certainly talk about what happened back in January, but there may be other things in my life that I want to talk to her about. But I would say I'm planning to see her again. I've just not seen her since early January, but I plan to see her again. So thank you for asking, and I don't mind talking about it. Jazz and Aries, hello to you. Hello to you. Jazz, maybe you're a new person. Okay. I'm just going to bring it up real quickly. I continue, like all of you probably do, continue to pay attention what's going on in Ukraine. And as I stated, what was a month ago, 5 weeks ago, the whole thing just continues to give me just this huge feeling of dread. I feel horrible for those people. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. It's just about as ugly as life gets. And as you know, I don't follow a ton of news. I never talk politics on here or anywhere else. I really only talk politics with like 1.5 people in my life. One person being my buddy Dave from college, and the half is kind of like if my dad and I happened to run into it He likes to talk about it. He'll bring it up and I'll just kind of go along with him. I would never bring it up, but it continues to give me, just that feeling of dread and everything else. And it's horrible. It's just horrible. So I continue to think of those people. I'm going to guess maybe at least one person in Ukraine at one point listened to Unfound, because as you can see, Australia, Ireland, Edmonton, etc. People are all over the world watch this live show, and so I know that a lot of people are download the podcast every Friday, and I got to believe we have at least one listener in Ukraine. So I feel for all those people. It's just horrible. And then maybe I want to finish up the opening part of this live show by saying my dad got a new car. A little surprised, but not totally surprised. He had this Jeep, and my feeling is that it was a little bit of an impulse buy on him when he got it. He had a minivan. He had a Chrysler minivan that was over 100,000 miles on it. And, it's a Chrysler. Great vehicle. We drove it to Canada and back a couple times. Great driving, comfortable. And even though I'm a single guy with no kids, I don't mind minivans. I think they're comfortable. I think they drive great. I don't know if I would personally own one, but he really liked that, but it was getting up. And, once again, you get over 100,000 miles on a Chrysler, you just never know what's going to happen. So he ended up getting that Jeep, and I just don't think that he ever really loved it. I think he was thinking back to when we had a Jeep Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer back in the 1980s, which is a fantastic vehicle. Just did not, I think, he was going for a little nostalgia there. He even got the same color as the Jeep we had back in the 1980s. And I will tell you, having driven it for a month while I was in Pennsylvania, not a fan. Not a fan at all. I'm not saying it's poorly made or anything. Just not that comfortable. It was hard to see out of, even though it has a lot of windows and everything. To me, it was very hard to see out of. Obviously great if you want to go four-wheeling and all that. But so I knew that he was having some reservations about it. He'd owned it for maybe 3 years, and he had leased it. And so he just up on Monday went and got another car. He got a 2021, maybe even a 2022 Hyundai. He got a Hyundai like I have, but he got a Santa Fe. So he got a little sport utility vehicle, SUV, with like 9,000 miles on it. He bought it used, but it still has a factory warranty on it. And he just up and told me that yesterday. I had talked to him like on Saturday. Didn't even mention it. It's just, and that's what he did with the Jeep too. He was driving the minivan. And all of a sudden he had this Jeep and he was like, "Oh yeah, I bought a new car." Oh, okay. Never asked me about, what do I think, what he should be getting and everything. He just went and did it. It's his money. So, so he got rid of the Jeep, turned it in, even though it was leased. I think the other concern he had was there was a limit on the mileage on this Jeep. And he knew that he was going to be running over it. So I think he just did something. I don't know. But he got rid of it and got a Hyundai Santa Fe with 9,000 miles on it. So I hope he likes it. He better. And maybe one of these days I'll get to see it. He's talked about coming down here. Of course, he wants me to fly up and drive him down. We'll see if that happens. So I guess I'll get to drive it if that happens. I love my Hyundai. I have a Hyundai Sonata. It's 2016. It was a former rental car. Had about 38,000 miles on it when I got it. And it's just about to click over 90,000 miles. And it's been fantastic. I just cannot even tell you. Tires, oil, and one of the headlights went out. That's it. And all this time. Of course, you change the oil, you know your tires are going to go. Have not replaced the brakes on it in 50,000 miles, even though most of that is city driving. I don't know. I mean, I used to replace the brakes on the Taurus I had like every 20,000 miles. And now we're like 50,000 on the Sunday, and the brakes are still fine. I don't get it. The only thing that's going on with it right now, though, is the paint at the top of the windshield is starting to peel a little bit. So I don't know where that's going to go. But as far as mechanically goes, and it's comfortable, I would recommend those cars to anybody. So that he got a Hyundai, maybe he knew that I had a Hyundai and, he knew that they were good cars. So, yeah, my dad got a new car. If he sends me any pictures, I will be sure to post them. Jazz says, I'm not new. I've just been watching since the beginning. I'm just silent. Jazz, whatever you want to do, man. Or woman. It's good to see you. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for taking part in the chat. Good to see you. Everything says regarding Ukraine in this day and age, it's a disgrace. It's just certainly, somebody, something has to be done about this. I'm no global strategist, but something needs to be done. Charlotte, yes, it is. I feel so bad for the regular people in both countries. Yeah. Everything says, glad your dad got his license back. Hey, nobody's more happy about that than I am. Everything. Although the matter of this court date that he has on April 22nd still has to get straightened out. Hopefully we'll get that fixed. Karen says, Ed Denzel Sr. sounds pretty cool. Oh, baby. Sometimes, Karen, sometimes. Jazz says, I'm a woman. Jazz and Aries are my horses. I love it. What kind of horses, Jazz? Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your horses and what color they are and how old they are. And do you ride them? I know some people take them to shows and maybe some of them are they just grazing horses, kind of just fun horses. A woman I went to high school with, her name is Carol. She still lives in our hometown and she has a couple horses. And so she always puts pictures of them and she has a barn for them and everything. Very happy for her. And I love horses. I love seeing them. Anytime that I'm around them, I love talking to them. Maybe at a fence, you'll be staring at you and, just talking to them. I did that once on a disc golf course once. And I took a video of it. But I'm allergic to them. At least I was. So I just have to watch. But that is fascinating. Jazz and Aries, 2 horses. Deborah, Hyundai is a good car. I think so. Some of them had some engine problems and things, Deborah, but I think they have a fantastic reputation. And I really like the new full-size SUVs that they have. What is it? The Palisade? Or is that the Kia? Kia and Hyundai, they're very similar. But the full-size Hyundai SUV that they have now is spectacular. Has to be in particular colors. Some of the colors I really don't care for, but I wouldn't mind owning one. Thoroughbred retired race horses. Well, look at you, Jazz. That is so cool of you. Retired race horses, taking care of them. That is so nice. They are 13 and 14 years old. So, yeah, their racing days are long gone. Thoroughbreds, they reach their full potential like 3 years old, right? That's usually the age of the horses like at the Kentucky Derby and everything. Good for you, Jazz. Very kind of doing that. That's neat. Okay. Let's get into the items for tonight. We're 40 minutes in. Had a lot of personal stuff, I guess, to talk about this week. The Milligan poll. Harry Milligan disappeared back in 1984 from Iowa. And in the discussion group, the poll that I posted there, I gave everybody 3 options. The option was the friends really of his have no idea what happened. They had nothing to do with it. Number 2 was the friends know what happened, but didn't have anything really to do with it. They've just kind of kept it under wraps. Or 3, they were absolutely 100% responsible for Harry's disappearance. And it was very close. This is one of those polls that was very, very close, very unique. That it was the friends know nothing was number 1. And then I think 1 or 2 votes behind the friends do know, but they didn't have anything to do with it was number 2. They were very, very close. Kind of surprised. Kinda. But we usually don't have, as much as I try to make the poll questions kind of close, it usually ends up being, really skewed one way or the other. And, 80 to 20% to 20%, 90%, 10%. But this one was very close. It was more like 55, 40%. And then I think 1 or 2 people said, yeah, they absolutely had something to do with it. So very interesting. Now, I will tell you, in the think tank, there weren't too many people buying into the friends being responsible for Harry's disappearance. And then for me, this blog that I write at Patreon, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter. The think tank, the only one of its kind where we get together on Sunday evenings to talk about the disappearance from that week. You can get into the think tank for the low, low price of $12 a month. I know that's quite a bit, but you get a lot. Go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And in fact, I've totally revamped all of the Patreon stuff. In fact, maybe I should make a post on that on Twitter and in the group. I changed that within the last 10 days. So I need to update all of you on that. But if you'd like to get into the think tank and get a whole bunch of other stuff that's pretty cool, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. But in the think tank on Sunday evenings, not too many people buying into the idea that Harry's friends, had anything to do with his disappearance. And me writing the blog at Patreon, I wasn't too convinced either. I'm not too convinced that his friends had anything to do with it. Of course, we know that people going missing with their cars is fairly rare. And we know that Adventures with Purpose are solving some of these disappearances. But I think what we need to keep in mind, and I talked a little bit about this last week, is that I don't think any of those cars that they've found with people in them, there are any allegations that any of them are foul play. I could be wrong. I really not keeping track on their day-to-day operations, and really most of what I know about them is what people have told me. But it seems to me that what they're solving are accidents or people falling asleep at the wheel or people drinking and driving or going too fast or something like that. I don't know if there are any allegations that these cars got pushed into the river or a lake with somebody in it and it was foul play. So given that, I don't know what the odds are. I think the odds are very low that Harry and his car went missing due to foul play. That's how I, came. Why is this doing this? Okay. My iTunes app, the little insignia. Okay. Close that. Okay. I just, the odds say that he went missing with this car and that it was not foul play. Doesn't mean it's zero, but I think that that's what we're learning from those particular types of disappearances. So there's that. Those disappearances that are being solved by Adventures with Purpose. That's how I came, to my conclusion. Jazz says, "Oh, that is your picture of your horse right there. My pics is my Jazzy. Your horse is retired at 6 years old." Kathy seems to know a little bit. Thoroughbreds can race until 5, 6, or 7. Depends on a lot of factors. Will they retired to stud? John Henry in California many years ago raced until age 10. Look at Kathy being the thoroughbred historian here. Hello, Coffee. Coffee, I have to say, I like getting your emails asking me questions at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for sending me a couple messages, asking me about things. So appreciate that. Christy says, Jazz, I just came in from my barn. Bad colic tonight. So we have another horse owner. K-Dog doing your cleaning tonight. K-Dog, good to see you. And K-Dog, you should know that I'm meeting another listener tomorrow. I'm not going to say who the person is, but this person lives in the Tampa area. We're getting together for lunch. And what should be interesting is that this person used to live in Texas, near Canadian Texas. So you can imagine what probably the number one topic of conversation is going to be tomorrow. But this person messaged me a couple days ago, asked me if I'd like to get together for lunch. She lives in the area. I said, sure, let's do that. I have some time tomorrow. Still have a lot of work to do, but I'll go do that. I'll probably not drive the whole way home. I'll probably stop at a Starbucks and try to get some work done there because I have trivia tomorrow evening as well. So, K-Dog, I will be meeting another listener. So that would be like the third listener in a month. Who would have thunk it? Coffee says, I don't think his friends probably had anything to do with it regarding Harry. Yep. Coffee probably didn't. Christy says, Ed, take Zyrtec. I do take allergy medicine once in a while. I'm more of an Allegra guy. I was on Claritin, but I think I grew too accustomed to it. My body adapted. Now I'm an Allegra guy, and it continues to work well for me. But honestly, Christy, I've not been around too many horses recently. I love animals, but just living in a city, it's hard to get around horses. K-Dog says, that's awesome. K-Dog, are you going to the place that we went? No. We're going to be meeting at a Chipotle, K-Dog. It's probably, where we met, maybe a little downtown although that was spent. I'd love to go back to that place. And in fact, K-Dog, I can tell you this. If that place was like right down the street from me, I would probably be going to that place all the time. I love the vibe. I love the view. The food was reasonably priced and everything. I love the atmosphere. But man, that's a long way away from where I live. But no, not meeting there, K-Dog. Not meeting there. Okay, moving on. And once again, if you are watching this, whether on live right here at 9:48 p.m. Eastern, or you are watching in the replay, I know a lot of people do that. You know what this is. Give it the thumbs up. Fonzie. Hey, just give it the thumbs up right now. We're 48 minutes in. The show is going well. You're enjoying it. Just say so. Let's move on. Unfound now, like I stated earlier, for people who are members who join through the join button down there, they've already gotten the Unfound now. They got it last Wednesday or Thursday. All of you will get to watch it maybe tomorrow or maybe Friday when I release it to the general public. Right now, it is just for members on this YouTube channel. But it covers the disappearance of Lindy Shobalok. And this is a disappearance from that very familiar city that we're all familiar with now, and that is Chillicothe, Ohio. You remember it came up in the Jamie Bowen episode. It got mentioned in the Megan Lancaster episode. Well, Lindsay's from that town, that city. A lot of women have been murdered there, gone missing there. And now Lindsay went missing from there in February. And that is the disappearance that I chose to talk about this week or this month for Unfound now. So be looking for that. Christy says, I think someone came after his winnings. You mean Harry Milligan, Christy? Okay. That's certainly possible. Jazz, so sorry about the colic. I oil my horses 3 days a week. All right, so we're getting into some horse talk here. Okay, interesting. So moving on, the newsletter came out last Friday. It's I have to admit, it's really tough when a first of the month happens like near a weekend, like it did last week. April 1st happened on a Friday, which means episode comes out that day. Newsletter has to be done that day. And of course, the Patreon blog has to get started writing that day. And somehow I get it all done. But somehow it's no surprise that I don't have a social life either. But last Friday, very late on Friday, the newsletter came out. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was 3,000 some words. Not a ton of topics for this particular newsletter, but I'm just happy when I do those newsletters that I think I can find something new to talk about, to write about, something that's going on with Unfound, something that's on my mind relating to Disappearance as a whole or whatever else. So if you're on the email list and you know you are and you didn't get it last Friday, then you better check your spam folder, because sometimes when I send emails out from MailChimp, which is what I have to use, I can't use Google anymore because the list of people is too long. But sometimes certain email settings will cause MailChimp sometimes sets off, oh, it's spam. So if you didn't get your newsletter last Friday, probably it's because it got spammed. So go to that folder, check it out. If you're not on the list, then you need to contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And in fact, all of you are seeing K-Dog in here. She realized that she's, of course, a devoted listener. She is a listener I just met a month ago. I talked to her enough to know that she's listened to a ton of Unfound episodes. She realized, hey, I'm not on the newsletter list. So she even emailed me. I must have been K-Dog must have been maybe a week ago or something, maybe this time last week, that you said, I got to get on that email list, Ed. And you got on the list, and you should have gotten your newsletter on Friday night, K-Dog. So hope you, that's the first one you got. So that's how it happened. K-Dog realized she wasn't on the list, even though she was a longtime listener. She emailed me. I made it happen. It can happen for you too. Let's see. Jazz says, I'm in South Jersey this time of year, so bad for colic. Once again, horse talk. I know you're listening, Jazz. It's fine. That's you. Everybody does not have to be beholden to me. I come with an agenda, things that I think are interesting. If you all talk amongst yourselves, that's fine too. Christy, where will you have lunch? Don't forget, I'm in Reddington Shores next week. That's right, Christy. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to have meet four different listeners within like a month and a half. Christy, like I said, I'm going to be meeting this particular listener at a Chipotle. I'm not going to say which one it is, but it's a Chipotle in the Clearwater, Tampa, St. Pete area. And as far as Christy, why don't you email me or message me on Facebook or through the email, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and we can arrange something. There's, of course, a lot of little places out here that we can certainly meet. I have a place in mind right off the top of my head, but we can certainly talk about it. And next week will be fantastic. I can't wait. Jazz, me and my daughter will be in Ocala soon. Ocala is a great horse area, Jazz. I know that just from playing disc golf up there. A ton of horse ranches up there. But that's a little far away. Ocala is like 2.5 hours, given that I've played disc golf there many times. I know how long it takes to drive there. Yeah. So maybe we can make something happen, Jazz. Just depends. But 2.5 hours, a little far. K-Dog, by the way, I'm caught up on all the episodes. Wow, you've done a lot of listening, K-Dog. That's a lot of audio. When you figure the average, we have like 300 episodes now, maybe 295, and the average is maybe 2 hours. That's a lot of minutes, K-Dog. Thank you for devoting so much time to Unfound. Thank you for making it part of your work. You're listening to it while you work. Thank you. Yeah. That's why, yes, that's what where we will be. That's why we'll be there for horses. That's what I thought, Jasmine. You're talking about horses. That made all the sense in the world. Okay, where do I want to go next? Now, you probably noticed that I didn't ask for any questions tonight because I'm holding off on the questions because we have a Q&A episode coming out this month. If you're new to Unfound, maybe you've just found out about it within the last 6 months. That's happening. I can tell you that's happening all the time. Maybe you also realize that there are a lot of maybe YouTube shows or channels that you watch, maybe some other podcasters who do these, once in a while, they do these things called Ask Me Anything. So I know a lot of listeners maybe want to get to know the host a little bit better. Maybe there's a lot of a topic that they've never heard the listener or the host talk about. Well, I do a Q&A episode once a year, and it's in April, and it's coming up. It's not going to be this Friday. It's not going to be next Friday. So April 22nd will be the Q&A episode. So all I'm going to do in that episode is a combination of a couple things. One, I'm going to go back to a lot of these live episodes, and I keep track of all of the questions that I get that get sent to me before the show starts. So I'll go back 6 months, maybe 8 months, depends. And I will put those questions on a list. And then in addition, I've already gotten some questions from some people that I'm stockpiling for that episode. And I will answer those questions as well. And any questions that are sent to me between now and when I record the Q&A episode, which will probably be 5 to 7 days before it comes out. So if you're watching this and there's ever some questions that you've wanted me to answer, it does not have to do with disappearances, does not have to do with true crime. The only standards are these. Number one, it has to be PG rated. And number two, it can't be too personal. Okay. I'm willing to give you some leeway on those. And in fact, I will be honest, wasn't last year, maybe the first Q&A episode I did 2 years ago, because this will be number 3. I actually answered a question, Ed, why are you single? So I'm willing to entertain some of your, questions that may not seem totally pertinent to the content of this program. And, but once again, though, has to be PG and can't be too personal. So if anything in that realm, it could be about movies, it could be about music, it could be about sports. I'm not going to answer any political questions, by the way. I'm not going to answer any religion questions. But anything outside of that, if you'd want to know my opinion on something, this is your one chance for the year to do that outside of showing up, of course, for these live shows. But most people don't show up for these live shows, no matter how much I talk about them. But so for a lot of people, come this Q&A episode, they will be hearing me answer these questions for the first time. Whereas many of you who do come to these live shows, you'll be like, well, I've heard that question asked before. That's just the way it goes. But if there are some questions that you would like me to answer, it's probably something else that I will shy away from is ask me, well, what do you think happened in this disappearance? If it's an unfound disappearance, I'm probably not going to answer it. Okay, I'm just going to tell you that right now. If you'd like me to answer an opinion on some other case or some other disappearance or some other murder or something, I will look at the question. I'll do my share of looking into all of that so I can sound intelligent. you can do that. But if it's going to be something like, what do you think happened in this particular unfound disappearance that's still unsolved, I'm probably going to shy away from it. But that's coming up. It'll be 2 weeks from this Friday. Yes, it will be an video too, audio and video. So I'll be sitting here. I'll just be looking at the camera, which will be somewhere around here. And I will be answering your questions. Now, you may be saying, well, so you got the Q&A episode, and you also realize we're due for another update episode. That's going to be the final Friday. So we're going to do a Disappearance this week, regular episode next Friday, and then the last 2 Fridays of April will be the Q&A episode and then the update episode. And then come May, we'll be going back to covering individual disappearances like we usually do. But this is pretty standard. The update episodes are every 3 months. If you don't know, they happen at the end of April, the end of August, and the end of December. So if you have any questions, send them to me. You can message them to me on Facebook, or you can email them to me, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Boston says Zyrtec is great. It doesn't make you sleepy. I've taken Allegra for like 10 years. I think it's good. Doesn't make me sleepy. Jazz says, Ed, I've been listening since you had that other person with you. Yeah, we don't talk about that old podcast. That is the podcast that shall never be named, done with the host, the co-host, who shall never be named. That's going back to the summer of 2016, Jazz. So, wow, you followed me from there over to here. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. There aren't many of you like that, but I deeply appreciate it. And probably you see the big difference between what was going on then and what was going on now. Christy says, maybe I'm feeling a bit shy. Whatever you want to do, Christy. Yes. Like I said, I'm open to, meet listeners. But like I stated last week, probably because in the situation I'm in, if somebody wants to meet, I will probably check their background out and everything before I do so. Boston says politics are a conversation killer. It just depends who you're talking to, Boston. Kathy Christie, you don't need to be shy. I'm an introvert, but Ed is very easy to talk to on the phone. Yes, Kathy and I have talked on the phone a few times. Kathy is my resident tax specialist. Marlene, there's Marlene. She always gets in here about an hour late, but that's okay because I'm the only one that's not allowed to be late. Been out for a while. Love your new format, Ed, with Unfound with the video. Thank you, Marlene. Jazz says, notice I didn't mention any names. Yeah, that's fine. Jill is in. Once again, everybody's seeing these people with the green names. These are all people who are members of this channel, and I deeply appreciate your contributions. I hope you're having a good time being members of this channel by hitting the join button. Alistair Crowley. Wow. How about that? Hey, Ed, it's great to catch you for a live show. It's a lot more interesting that way. Alistair, I was doing this show when I only had 3 viewers to it. So I'm going to do the show. If you can make the time, Alistair, that's great. And I appreciate it. I realize that people have a lot of stuff going on, work, children, hobbies, all sorts of things going on. So anytime anybody takes time out for the actual live show when it's happening, it's great. And if you can only do that once in a while, that's great. And I appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you. So the Q&A episode coming out in 2 weeks. Get your questions in. Next, Clashendra Hall. The only thing I want to say about her disappearance is they had a recent balloon release to once again raise awareness for her disappearance. Hers is a somewhat old one. It's like 28 years old now. And I continue to believe with her disappearance that she was working for this guy Larry Amos, and a lot of people looked at him. Did he do something to her? And I've mentioned this before. I believe that unfortunately this young man is deceased now, but Larry Amos had a son who was around Clashindra's age, and he was not a good guy. And I believe he should be the number one suspect in her disappearance all these years later. But unfortunately, was he murdered, or was it self-defense? Was he murdered? I don't know. But he's now deceased, and it was a couple years ago. And Clashindra's mother, Laurel, knows that I think that. I don't know what can be much done about it now. But if any of you have not listened to that episode yet, I know many of you had. It's going back to like 2017, but maybe some of you haven't. Amos is not even mentioned in the episode, and it's not until the episode came out that to this day I remember some new listener to Unfound way back then messaging me and telling me, Larry Amos had a son who was Clashindra's age. He didn't live with Larry at the time, but he certainly was in the same city, and he was around Clashindra's age, and he wasn't a very good guy. And it turns out Laurel didn't even know this either, and it's her daughter, and it's a disappearance that was 25 years old at that time. So this is how these things happen. And at least at the time, Omar was alive. But since the episode came out, like I said, I think in 2020, there was a shooting or something, and he died. So if you ever go back and listen to that episode, or you're going to listen to it for the first time, that probably should be inserted in there somewhere. Marlene, yes, I've been beaten under the weather for nearly a month. Sorry to hear that, Marlene. Hello, Jill. Yeah, Kathy, Omar Amos also deceased. Yep, I know it. Very sad. But I think that's still the best choice for her disappearance. I've mentioned it a few times, but I'll just throw this out there anyway. This Friday will be the third episode in which I do video. This Friday's guest agreed to appear on Zoom, and man, she had the lighting great. She was kind of dressed up and everything. She was prepared, and it was a fantastic interview. But I'm wondering, for those of you who have actually taken the time, I know many of you do listen on Spotify. You just listen to the audio version. Totally fine. Not asking you to change anything. But for those of you who have maybe heard about, you can now see him interview the guest. Just wondered on your opinions, how you think it's going. It's still very much in its infancy. I know with Zoom, I can put fake backgrounds or something behind me, and I'll, when I have time, I'll look into that. I'm also wondering what you're thinking about actually watching me as I'm actually recording the episode. So you're seeing me, the camera's right over there, and I'm reading here, and the recording, this laptop is being used for the recording. I'm just wondering what you're thinking about that. The tough part is I'm a little constricted. When I set this desk up and everything in this area, never did I know eventually that I'd maybe want to film myself recording. So it's still a work in progress. I would like to offer up different angles, maybe different lighting every week, but some of this stuff is going to have to get moved if I'm going to do that, and I'm really have to think through it. So these first few episodes of when I'm recording myself, they've pretty much been the same. Whereas, of course, with Zoom, there's only one way to do that, and that's just sitting here, and I think that's the best way. It's just nice and simple, just straightforward. But I can afford to, I think, get a little more creative when it's just myself. And I want to do that. I really, really do want to do that. Just have to figure out what I'm going to do. Am I going to have to move this desk somewhere else? Am I going to have to? I just don't know right now. But I would like to give you some variety in those videos, at least when you just see me. Kathy says the video version is excellent. Thank you, Kathy. Charlotte, I like the new interview format. Thank you, Stephanie. Is asking me, did you Zoom call your interviews prior to the new format of uploading video to YouTube, or were you recording voice-only conversations and uploading them? Until 3 weeks ago, Stephanie, it was just audio. There was no video. I take that back. There was one that was video, and it was Dr. Eric Grabowski before he became one of my assistants. He was the guest for the Donna Michelenko episode way back in 2017. And he and I did it, but we did it over Skype. But that was the only time. But still, there was only an audio version of it. I never did release the video, and I don't even know if I even have the video anymore. But so I was just doing, it was all audio. It was just over the phone. And the most recent setup was me talking on my phone and me using my tablet to record it. And I thought the audio was coming out pretty good. But now with Zoom, it's audio and video, and the audio is really, really good. I have to be honest that the reason that I stayed away from doing video and the Zoom type of thing is that, and we still may run into this, is that some people just don't like to be videoed. So we still may run into that. Keep in mind, I'm still going to do interviews with people, even if they say, you know what, I really don't want to see myself on video, and I really don't, and that's their prerogative. It's their interviews. So if they say that, I still may record it over Zoom and everything. There just won't be any audio, and I'll just have to, for the YouTube version, we'll just do what we've been doing up until recently. But it's totally up to them. I'm surely not going to turn down an interview because somebody says, you know what, I don't want to be, I want to be talked to. I certainly want to be interviewed. I want this disappearance to get out there, but I don't want to be videoed. I'm going to do that. I'm still going to do the interview. DLV, I think the new audio video presentation format is awesome. Makes the interview so much more engaging. Really enjoyed last Friday's episode. Thank you, DLV. Thank you. Sorry to hear you're feeling bad there, Marlene, but sounds like you're recovering. So I will continue to take feedback on these video interviews, especially the part where it's just me and I'm actually recording my side of the episode. And I say it once again, that is actually me recording the episode. So you hear me saying those words. Those are the words. That's the recording that actually ends up for the audio episode that comes out on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else. So there you go. Dr. Telesco last Thursday had a little technical problem, and it very well may have been my fault. Dr. Telesco, dare I say, it was really nervous about how it didn't come off smoothly and how we came on 10 minutes late and everything else. But I want to say, I'm not sure it was her fault. I'm hoping that between now and our next show, which will be the end of this month, that we can do kind of a practice, because it seems to me that she's setting it up beforehand, and then what was happening is that when she was trying to go live, the go live button wasn't clickable. For example, as you all know, every Wednesday morning I set this up. I set the link up. You can do that. You pre-do everything. And then all I have to do is when the time comes, 9 p.m. Eastern, I go into YouTube Studio, go to where this particular file is. You can see it. And I click on this little thing. This window comes up, and then it says, all you have to do is hit the blue go live button, and boom, here I am for all of you. And all you have to do is when I post the link on Twitter, on the website, on Facebook, all you have to do is click on that link and boom, there I am. That's all you have to do. It's as easy as it gets. The issue has been so far with Dr. Telesco is that we never have that link beforehand. So if you want to watch the live show or these shows that I do with her, which are live, you have to go to their channel. You have to try to find the particular video that says live, then click on that. It's just a little more work. And as I've told Dr. Telesco, we try to make it as easy as possible. Now, it seems that her doing that for other types of videos that they are doing on that channel, it's working. For some reason, though, it didn't work last Thursday night when she wanted to interview me over Zoom, even though she and her assistant, Brendan, followed the directions. So I don't know. And I can't help her because although Unfound now has a Zoom account, it's a free account. And you cannot live stream through YouTube with a free account on Zoom. You have to pay for that. They have a paid account over there, a professional account or whatever. So they can do it. Just didn't work out last Thursday for whatever reason. So I can't even experiment here at home with my own Zoom account and our own YouTube channel because of that. Whereas Dr. Eric Grabowski, assistant, he also has his own Zoom, and it's a professional one. So he's worked on it, and maybe he and I can set something up for this weekend to do a practice. I'll have to message him if he has some time, and we'll try to do something and see if he has the same issue that Dr. Telesco had, whereas everything looked fine, but then when she went to hit the go live button, you couldn't click it. It was what they call grayed out. I don't know why. So I'm just glad that everybody eventually was able to find the show and was able to watch us talk about the disappearance of Jesse Ross. Of course, Cherie says that Sherry Papini thumbnail is very clever, Ed. Meant to tell you that. Oh, you mean with her eye through the magnifying glass? I got a couple artistic genes in me, Cherie. I got a few. It was just something that seemed right at the time, but you're just noticing it now. That's funny. It just worked out that way. Originally, Cherie, it was just her picture. And I thought, I really should put the logo up there. And so when I put it up there over the picture, it was off center. And I was like, well, what would be cool is if, I move her picture over this way and then the logo over this way, and then I could see her looking right through that magnifying glass. I got to admit, Cherie, it was not planned that way. It's just something that I happened upon. I can admit that, but thank you. Christy says, I like the Zoom interviews. Thank you. It shows your expressions when they discuss difficult parts. Hey, Christy, you watch this live show enough to know that I got a lot of facial expressions. I can do facial expressions with the best of them, and they're all real. So I think that the video does add something to it. I realize there's still going to be, most people are going to listen to the audio. The audio travels better. You can listen to it on the treadmill. You can listen to it driving in the car. You can listen to it on the subway. Whereas, as we know, when there's video, then you kind of feel an obligation to watch it. And that's great. It certainly does add something, but then you're kind of restricted on, other things that you can be doing. So there you go. What do I want to talk about now? Let's go to a little bit of news. And I do want to mention something. I don't think that she would mind me saying this, but I didn't have it written in my notes, but she did tell me this not long before the live show started, is that, going way back to 2017, the disappearance of Troy Galloway. He disappeared from California. His mother, Nancy, was the guest, and I continue to keep in contact with her. Maybe some of you know, who may be friends with her on Facebook, that she was diagnosed with cancer last year. She's cancer-free. She got the chemo and everything, but she told me today, I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but it sounds to me like she's defeated the cancer. The cancers are in remission, something like that. So that is all good news for her. I'm very, very happy for her, very excited for her. Also on the cancer front, please remember that Stormy Dorsey, another guest from back in 2017, she was the guest for the Brandon Williams disappearance, her brother. She will be going in to have another surgery for her cancer sometime this month. I think it's coming up soon. So, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago when she had made the announcement about it. So let's not forget about her and what she'll be going through again here very shortly. So I know many of you, once again, are also friends with her on Facebook, and many of you know her from the discussion group, and she's been very upfront about her cancer. And she did the interview back in 2017. Everything was great. And then would it have been 2020, maybe, that she was feeling fine? And then all of a sudden she started having these seizures. And it turned out that she had a tumor growing in her brain. And she had to get a lot of chemo and surgery and everything. And she's been fine, but she went in for a checkup and something didn't look right. So they're going to do it again. So please be thinking of her. Be watching out for her. She's had a very difficult past year. Her mother died within the last 6 months, last 8 months. So she's having a lot of things going on. So please keep Stormy Dorsey in your thoughts and prayers as well. Moving on, I want to talk about, I'm sure many of you saw this story. It made national news. It seems to be somewhat resolved, although I'm still not sure anybody knows what happened. That this couple, their names are Ronnie and Beverly Baker. They were kind of on this, I don't know if it was cross-country trip. I don't think they were going to East Coast to West Coast, but they had an RV. And they were towing a small SUV behind them. And Ronnie, I think, was 72 years old. Beverly, 69 years old. So not what I would call old. I mean, no, I can't say that. I have two brothers and a sister who are around that age. Let's just say that. Not that old. But they were on this trip. They were coming, I think, from Oregon, and they were going to be driving to Arizona to meet people that didn't make it. And everybody's like, where are they? And they were found. And they were found in northern Nevada, which is not an area that I'm familiar with. I lived in southern Nevada, and I was only to northern Nevada once. But they were eventually found on some dirt road in mud on a mountain west of Silver Peak. I looked at it on a map. Doesn't mean anything to me. And everybody's wondering what the heck happened here. And like I said, Ronnie is dead. And Beverly, his wife, I think is in hospital. I don't know if she's going to make it or not. Read some news stories, and they had like a nephew or somebody who's been making postings on Facebook about this. And I posted something in the group. How does this happen? What happened here? And it turned out that, like I said, the RV, a pretty big RV, not one of those bus-like RVs, but I would say a pretty large RV, was stuck in some mud. And for some reason, their car is nowhere to be found. What would happen? What happened here? What went so wrong? It's hard to say right at this point. Did they get carjacked? Were they cruising along? Did they stop somewhere and got carjacked and somebody stole their vehicle that they were pulling and then drove them off and, ditched this RV with them in it? not revealing a lot of information right at this second, but I think we also happen to have to be open to the idea that something medically go wrong. That, I don't know who was driving. It sounds to me like Ronnie was the regular driver. Did something happen to him? Or, as we've heard many times, were they following Waze or some other GPS program, and it took them in the wrong direction? I will tell you that that's happened to me right here in Pinellas County. Something's going on. I don't, hard to say. And I'll be cruising south on the Gulf Boulevard, and my plan is to go over to the 275, and I'll be setting up my Waze as I go. I know you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do that before you don't do it and drive at the same time. And for some once in a while, Waze will have my location nowhere near where I am. Or it'll be telling me, if you want to go east, well, no, you should be going this exact opposite direction. And there are stories out there about people who have died. They followed the GPS to the point that got them stuck, and they died. There might have even been a story. Waze is something I don't think that started until I moved to Florida, but maybe going back to the Garmin days and those first GPS units that were out, somebody followed one and they ended up in Death Valley and died. These things happen. So I'm open to that idea as well. Unfortunately, Marlene, they were not found safe. The man is deceased. He's dead. But so I think we should be open to a couple different possibilities regarding this. What's weird to me is that the RV was found, but the car that they were pulling was not found attached to it. That could make me think that maybe it was some sort of carjacking of some type. Somebody saw a couple old people driving an RV with a car in the back, time to rip them off. Certainly possible. So I'm keeping my eyes on this. I know many of you saw this story. It made national news. I posted the story in the discussion group on Facebook. But I guess what we're saying here is this is just how easy a disappearance can happen. Now, granted, I think the advantage that they had was they were in a big RV and it would stick out. And they were trailering another vehicle, and it's hard to believe, they would maybe drive into a lake and not be seen. A big RV like that is probably going to hit the bottom of the lake pretty fast, and a lot of it's going to be sticking above the water, and unlike a regular car. But this just shows you, how quickly this can happen. I could tell you, I think I'm leaning towards some sort of medical event. That, maybe she was sleeping. He's driving by himself. He's not, something starts to go on with his blood sugar or something. He doesn't realize where he's going. She's sleeping. She doesn't realize that he's, not thinking right. And all of a sudden they're out there in the middle of nowhere and he's stuck and she's sleeping and he decides, well, I got to go walk for help. And he stumbles off into the woods and something happens. And then that's the reason she lives. Can certainly see that. Now, what would that mean for the car they were trailering? I don't know. I'm hoping that we eventually do find out what happened here, so we can know. But right now, I think we should be open to a few different possibilities. GPS issue, medical issue, carjacking. So once again, this is Ronnie and Beverly Baker. They were traveling from northern Nevada or Oregon. They were headed to Arizona, didn't make it there, and people started trying to call them, and they weren't answering. And finally, just within the last couple days, I think this disappearance might have started on like March 28th or something, so it's been a while. Their RV was finally found within the last couple days. Jasmine says, yes, I had the GPS send me the wrong way, like a different state lost. I believe it, Jasmine. I don't know why these things happen. But even for myself, I've been using my Waze app for maybe 8 years, but it seems maybe once every couple months. Now, granted, I don't go a lot of places where I need the GPS or the Waze, but I used it, for example, when I went down to Florida International and back. I used it back in January when we went down to Estera and back, just to see if there's any. I know where I'm going, but are there any backups? Are there any wrecks and things like that? But I'm telling you, maybe once every 4 months, it will just act weird. It just will. And I don't, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. I guess I'm just fortunate. I'm in an area where I know where I'm going. Kathy says Silver Peak is in southwestern Nevada, close to California-Nevada border, close to Ely or Ely. Yeah, that's, I have to tell you, Kathy, that I guess it's southwestern Nevada. When I think southern Nevada, of course, I think Las Vegas. But yes, I'm familiar with northern Nevada because our family drove to Pocatello once a year. Yes, you're right, Ed. He was deceased. She is safe, right? Ely. Kathy says, nope, that's in the middle of Nevada. Yeah. The area was just not familiar to me, Kathy. I went through Reno once way back in 2000. And then for work a couple times, I had to go up to Pahrump, which is kind of going up that direction, but that's only like an hour outside of Las Vegas. And then as far as the rest of Nevada, I would go the exact opposite direction toward Utah. I'd be going up to Mesquite and then Cedar City, St. George in Utah. So that whole area up in that, I just know nothing about it. I regret not going up to like try to see Area 51 and the Little Alien and all that. A lot of regrets about not taking some time to go see Nevada a little bit more. But when you're Las Vegas, where else is, you just don't want to go anywhere else. Okay. I try not to talk about this topic every week, but once again, I have to. And so there has been this back and forth between Phil Klein and that radio host at that radio station. Phil Klein said something last week, and then finally within the last couple days, that radio host at that radio station replied. It was like 12, 13-minute response. If any of them are listening, I really don't care. I do the show for all of you. I don't do it for them. Here's the issue. I've really, 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 really tried to boil it down, and I know we only have 27 minutes left, and I know I won't go that long on this. Here is the problem with the discussion going on between Phil Klein, this guy who was on the radio show last week, and the radio host. I'm not convinced any of them know anything of what they're talking about. I know a lot of people are suspicious of Phil Klein. They think he's underhanded and all of this other stuff. Very well may be. I don't know. I know there's a complaint about him regarding that disappearance that he was involved in Idaho. I wasn't there. I don't know. I've never talked to anybody in that family. I don't know any more about it than any of you do. I don't know. All right. And I do know I've heard that he's gotten involved in a couple other disappearances recently. So it leads me to believe that Tom Brown's disappearance isn't the only one on his plate right now, despite it seeming so. Just within the last month, I know I talked to somebody who said, oh yeah, he's taking an interest in this disappearance now. And I can't remember what it was. I don't remember if it was in Texas or somewhere else. But here's the problem I have with all of it. None of them know what they're talking about. Now, I wouldn't expect that radio host at that radio station to know anything about disappearances. In fact, I will probably guess that in his career, he has never covered a disappearance as much as this one ever. I'm not blaming him. That's just the way it goes. Not a criticism. All right? He just talks about what's in the news. All right. Totally fine. That is not a criticism for him, even though I never mention his name anymore and I never mention the radio station anymore. And that's on purpose. But he doesn't know what he's talking about. But he can be excused because it's not his business. The issue is this, and I have it written out, so I'm just going to read it right now. You don't ask, the big problem I have overall about disappearances is that everybody who gets involved with them, who have a law enforcement background, think they know everything there is to know about them. Okay, here's what I can tell you. Most people in law enforcement don't know anything about them. You know how I know? Because that's what Dr. Telesco tells me, former NYPD. That's what other police officers who have helped me on the program behind the scenes tell me. They don't get any training. They don't get any education on it. And most of all, on the job, rarely in their entire careers are they ever going to run into a disappearance that lasts more than a week. Remember, the disappearances that we cover on Unfound are the exceptions. All right? They are the exceptions. These are the ones that last a year and can go as old as the 1940s, like with Mary Jane Van Gilder. These are the exceptions. They are still very important. They are just as important as every other disappearance out there. But to understand them, you have to be acquainted with them. You actually have to know about them. It's not enough to just look at disappearances that are a week old and think you're going to know anything about a disappearance that lasts for 30 years. That makes no sense. The problem I have is this guy who comes on to the radio show and starts spouting off all this other stuff. And while I was an investigator and everything else, here's what I know. I've investigated or researched or reported on, done interviews and everything, way more disappearances than that guy ever did in his entire career. Okay. The problem is I think that because they were investigators doing something, they think that they're educated enough to talk about disappearances. They aren't. It would be no different. Once again, I'll come back to what I wrote here. It would be no different than if you were to ask a Vice Squad member to investigate an art theft. Vice is crime, art theft is crime, but they are surely not similar. You would not be able to use anything that we'd use, any experience on your Vice experience to investigate an art theft. And if you were an art theft investigator, there's nothing you could ever use to help solving Vice crimes like prostitution, drugs, and everything else. We know that those are two very specific types of crimes, and you have to know the types of people that do them, what those people do, how those people work, the circles they travel in, and everything else. And the two are not interchangeable. There's a reason that there's an art theft department, and there's a reason that there's a Vice Squad department. Why? Because you need specialists in both. Likewise, you don't ask a sex crimes person to go investigate car theft. You don't expect homicide investigators to investigate arson, of course, unless somebody got killed during the fire. That would be an exception. Why? Because homicide investigators specialize in death and murders, stabbing, shootings. Arson investigators are experts at going into a building, figuring out where the fire started, what the accelerant was, and everything else. That is different than investigating a murder. So then why is it that so many people, like this investigator who was on that radio show with that radio host, thinks because he was an investigator, he can just come on and start showing his expertise in disappearances? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Because what I would say is that there is no real disappearance investigator who would ever go on a radio show and say what this guy said. Any person with any experience would not go on there and say any of that stuff. Now, I will even extrapolate this out to Phil Klein. I will even extrapolate. Now I know what it's going. Well, I've been involved in disappearances and everything. I'm calling out to the world. Does anybody have a list of disappearances that Phil Klein has solved? And if Phil Klein, if you're watching, you can email it to me and send me like the phone numbers or email addresses of these families so I can call or email them for myself. Okay? It just is so weird to me. Yet once again, I have it written here. Yet everybody seems to think that anybody can professionally analyze disappearances. Everybody would think it would be crazy if some person who let's just take a different profession. Engineers. It would be everybody would think it was weird if a chemical engineer started lending his or her expertise about building bridges. Yeah, engineers build bridges, but they're mechanical engineers. They're structural engineers. They're what were the kind of engineers that build roads? That's what they do. Chemical engineers don't know anything about building bridges. But it seems like within the disappearance community, everybody just has all these opinions, and it's just theories. Anybody can theorize. Most of you have no law enforcement experience. You could go on that radio show with that radio host and say the exact same things that guy did last week or the week before, whenever it was. And you have no experience, and he allegedly has a ton. Whereas what I would say, and what I've been told by people who actually are actually modest enough to admit it, these are things that actually you need to study. Disappearances that last for more than a week are a topic that you have to study and look at a wide group of them. Why do they happen? And that's what we've been doing. And if, like K-Dog admitting finally that she's listened to all 295 episodes, here's what I think I know. K-Dog probably knows more about disappearances than that guy, despite him having a law enforcement background. She knows more about disappearances than he does. So, because like I said, nobody who knows anything about long-term disappearances would go on that program and say that. Now, it pays to have experience, and this comes up kind of, with Mark Heimbaugh's disappearance. And I have great respect for Rich McHale. I love it that he came on. He came on and he got to voice his opinion about Mark and how he believes Mark was abducted and everything else. But I will even say that this about him, and it's not because he avoided or anything. He had his law enforcement career. He did a great job. He put in his time. He retired. Spectacular. But let's just be clear. He doesn't have any experience about disappearances that last 30 years. I'm not saying his police experience doesn't matter. It certainly does, being that he was there, being that he got to go to those places, that he knows Maureen, that he got to talk to Mark's father, and that all that stuff, absolutely 100% important, spectacular. But the overall idea is still that you need to know something about disappearances that go on for a long time and why that happens, to be able to analyze any particular one disappearance. This is the scientific method. So, this is how I feel about all of this. This back and forth and all of this between them and everything. It's certainly got into a peeing match and all of this, where it's clear to me none of these people know anything about long-term disappearances. None of them. Now, I can say that. Why? Because I've been doing this for 5.5 years. And I've spoken to 50 some families over the last 5.5 years. And I take a lot of notes and I listen to everything they say, and patterns start to develop, both from what they say and the facts that I see in these disappearances. And it is beyond me that anybody could do what I've done for the last 5.5 years and then realistically come out and say, oh yeah, they covered up his suicide and this, that, and the other thing. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just don't know why everybody automatically defaults to the worst. Penny's husband's not out there last night, so it must be suspicious. He must have been in there, covering up Tom's body and putting it in the back of the car or something. Why wasn't he out there? Maybe he was sleeping. Maybe he thought that his wife and his wife's son were overreacting to her other son not showing up at midnight and just thinking the whole thing was crazy at the time. Maybe it's that. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was this. Maybe he was that. Why does everybody always default to the worst? The worst of all possible choices. I don't get it. I don't get it. But, is this something regarding human nature? Because this is how these types of rumors and theories and everything else get started, because people default to the worst when there's no reason to do that. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just wonder why people automatically go there when there's all these other choices. So, no. It's just, I know I'm on my soapbox here and everything, but, listening to that radio host on that radio show and him replying in all of this, I just don't think any of them know what they're talking about. And that's what I would say. I'm not going to go on his radio show. I'm not going to be interviewed him. I'm not doing that. I can just do this. And the truth is, pretty sure that Unfound gets more downloads per week than that radio show has listeners. Pretty sure. So it's just amazing to me that anybody just thinks they can step right in and start spouting off stuff and act like they're an authority on disappearances when I know they have no experience in the area. I'm not trying to protect my territory. Anybody that wants to take the time to read about 100 different, look and talk to 100 different families or 200 different families and take all the notes and everything, I totally support it. Great. That's what I've done. I support anybody that wants to do that. I'm not trying to say nobody else should do it. Everybody should be doing it. But it kind of dumbs the whole thing down when people think that they can just walk in because they have police experience and start saying things and want to be taken seriously when they have no experience in that area for long-term disappearances. So I would tell you, the public, you hear some investigators start talking about a disappearance that's gone on for 10 or 20 years. Don't listen to the person. The person does not know what he or she is talking about. Just doesn't. So there you go. Okay. What time? Let's see what everybody else is saying. You're not wrong, Ed. Thanks, Boston. Charlotte, I heard that he is involved in a different disappearance too. You mean Phil Klein? Crystal? Charlotte, Crystal, thank you. Charlotte, I've watched shows lately that have made me change my mind on how I look at some disappearances. A person's mental state at the time they disappeared should be taken very seriously. Charlotte, true. And Charlotte, you bring up one of the most important parts. A person's mental state, in my opinion, is absolutely undervalued right now. Absolutely. Now, I still believe that murders are a majority of disappearances, Charlotte. But certainly a person's mental state, especially these days. What do I keep saying? Suicides are up in the last 50 years by a huge amount. Huge amount. Drug addiction is up by a huge amount. Since when I was born in 1970, we all think late 60s, oh, big time drug stuff. People doing way more drugs now, legal and illegal, and getting addicted to them way more in the 21st century. And thirdly, mental health issues in general, bipolar disorder, manic depressive. Why that is, I don't know. I'm not a health professional. I just know what the statistics say. Those three facts alone should be enough for people to think, before I start jumping to the mother did it, and the mother and the stepfather and the brother all covering something up, why not we just think that, it is possible that he walked off? Because you know why? Because we have a lot of other disappearances where that exact same thing happened and people committed suicide or overdosed and everything else. It's amazing to me that all these people talking about Tom Brown's disappearance never mention all of these other disappearances that are in the news where people walked off and died. We still don't know what happened, but it surely wasn't foul play. And there surely wasn't a cover-up. So why does everybody default to that with Tom's? I don't know. I'm not saying there wasn't foul play. All I'm saying is there's a whole host of historical evidence showing that it probably wasn't. That's all I'm saying. K-Dog says, I don't know crap. K-Dog, I disagree. Jill, after 200 plus episodes that I've listened to, I'm still a firm believer that I could never be an expert because every person, in case different, have a personal connection is important, Jill. It's up because there was a huge stigma and people talk about it. And also there was difficulties with diagnosing it at a point in time. Jill, that's certainly true. That is your area of expertise. So, what I would say to the first part of that, Jill, is that I think you can become an expert in this. Although I call I guess I've self-labeled myself that, but I will tell you this, the 3 schools that I've went to so far, the professors seem to think so, and some law enforcement people who have helped me out behind the scenes, they seem to think so. You can become an expert on this. And it involves looking at how people disappear and looking at the general circumstances and, what does happen? Why do these people go missing? What was going on with their lives? And after 200 some disappearances, you see a lot of patterns. Although each one in the technicalities is unique, there's probably like 7 or 8 different kinds of disappearances. That's it. Despite there being 100,000 unsolved disappearances in the United States, they can all be boiled down to about 7 or 8 different types of scenarios. Some of them being foul play, some of them being accidents, some of them being, mental health or suicide situations. But it's about 7 or 8 different scenarios. And it's important to know that. It's no different than an engineer shows up at the bank of a river and is being asked to build a bridge across it. You start looking at the rock, you start looking at the stone, you start drilling to see what, how far you need to go down to get to a solid base where you can put the pilings in and all that stuff. It's no different than that. And there's going to be all sorts of different situations, all different kinds of rocks, all different kinds of rivers, all different kinds of roads, everything else. But in the end, there's only about 5 or 6 different types of bridges. It's the same thing. Italiano. Hey, Mambo Italiano. What's going on? All right. Let's get to this Friday's disappearance. The missing person's name is Paul Egan. It's a disappearance July 20th / July 21st of 1975. I was on the verge of becoming 5 years old at the time. It's crazy. He disappeared from Plantation, Florida. His sister, Marion Egan, will be the guest. As you already know, it was a Zoom interview. And the title of this episode is Truly Diabolical. That's the name of it. truly diabolical, because I think what you're going to hear in this episode, we've talked about a lot of bad characters on Unfound. David Perry, Kelly Rothwell, Dennis Bowman. I think the guy, not Paul, of course, but the guy you're going to hear that is the main suspect. I don't know if there's a lot of mystery in this particular disappearance, but the guy you're going to hear about that is probably responsible for Paul's disappearance is probably one of the most evil people we've talked about on this program. And that's saying something. I'm not saying he's number one. Obviously, Dennis Bowman killing that woman, killing his daughter, probably killing other people. He'd probably be up there. David Perry, of course, as well, what he did to Kelly Rothwell. But this guy is certainly up there. Some of the... you're just going to hear a couple stories that cannot be matched, I don't think, in any of the disappearances we've covered to this time. Some of the things that he did. But the bizarre part, just like last week where we talked about friends, we're also going to be talking about friends this week because Paul and this guy were friends and they worked together. But the suspect in this disappearance is trying to say that, yeah, he allowed Paul to drive his vehicle home from work that night. And then when Paul's brother got up the next morning, Paul wasn't there, never to be seen again. But this friend's Jeep was there. Just a lot of things just don't go along with that. And once again, the disappearance is the disappearance of Paul Egan, Egan, from Plantation, Florida. That's way down like near Miami. Happened July 20th, July 21st of 1975. His sister Marion is the guest. And it's interesting because Marion and I have known each other since like late 2017 or early 2018 is when we first spoke about Paul's disappearance, and then we lost touch. She was doing her own thing. And then out of nowhere, like a month ago, she messages me on Facebook. Hey, I haven't forgot about you. How you doing? Been following the show. I see you're doing real well. I think I'm ready to talk again about Paul's disappearance. I think I'm ready to do an interview. I said, fantastic. Now, like I said, not sure there's a lot of mystery in this disappearance, but just like I was just saying about 10 minutes ago, these types of disappearances need cover too, even though we probably know what happened. These kinds need to be studied too. They need to be known. Because in knowing this one, if a police officer investigator knew about this and a whole bunch of others, this would help that investigator for the disappearance that he's going to encounter or she's going to encounter this coming week. This is what I mean by experience and knowing stuff about disappearances. So you don't need to have these really mysterious ones with all different types of possibilities and theories and everything to learn things. You can learn stuff from the ones that are pretty straightforward too, even though nothing could be proven. So we're not going to have a map video this week. No reason to do that this week. However, there is some material, a lot of clippings that I've posted in the discussion group on the website that you can take a look at, that Paul's sister Marion, has saved over the years. And it's a long one. Even though it's pretty straightforward, it's a 3-hour interview. That is because I really wanted all of you to get a really good idea about this guy who probably did this. So that's this Friday. Once again, both will be available in both audio and video versions. So what did we do tonight? Everybody's about 11 o'clock. Everybody's kind of signing off. Totally fine. So what did we do tonight? Talked about, I got a disc golf one-day tournament this weekend. Started to work out. Gave all thoughts and prayers to Ukraine. Dad got a new car. The Milligan poll, Unfound Now, the newsletter Q&A episode, Cassandra Hall. Talked about Nancy Galloway as well. Talked about Dr. Lesko's show. Got on my soapbox for a little bit regarding the stuff that continues to go on with the fighting between that radio host and that radio show and the guest and Phil Klein. Got on that for a little while. Talked about these people. Very sad. One died from the RV story. And then finally, the disappearance of Paul Egan this Friday. Come out 2 p.m. Eastern on Spotify, iTunes, and elsewhere. And of course, on YouTube as well. Of course, early for all you members, all you people in green. That's all I got. Great show tonight. Thank you all for chatting. I know we had a couple new people in the chat, or a couple people who watch anyway, but chatted for the first time. Thank you. Don't forget to join. Don't forget to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. And I'm out. Good night.